All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're exploring one of the most fascinating ancient mysteries out there, an incredibly influential text that just completely vanished from the canonical Bible. Yep, we're talking about the Book of Enoch. For a guy who gets barely 3 short verses in the entire Hebrew Bible, literally just a man who walked with God and was no more, Enoch sparked an absolute literary phenomenon. So in this explainer, we're unpacking the lost cosmology, the rebellious angels, and the wild apocalyptic hope hidden right within these ancient pages. And here's what's truly wild about this whole thing. The New Testament book of Jude actually directly quotes a text that later authorities deliberately banned from Scripture. Jude treats the words of Enoch as absolute authoritative prophecy. And honestly, he wasn't alone. Early Christian writers were constantly referencing it, and even the Gospel of Matthew borrows heavily from its core concepts. So that leaves us with a pretty massive historical puzzle, right? If the Bible itself quotes it, why on earth was it banned? This paradox is exactly what's driving our investigation today. How did a text so beloved by early believers become a forbidden, suppressed secret for literal centuries? Well, to figure that out, we need to step back and look at exactly what this book actually is. Section 1. The banned biblical bestseller. To really understand the ban, we've got to look at the origins of First Enoch. You see, it's not just one single book, but this massive library of 5 distinct texts pieced together over centuries during the super turbulent Second Temple period. Now, following the destruction of the Second Temple, Rabbinic Judaism kind of moved away from this intense apocalyptic speculation, and later Christian councils basically followed suit, effectively erasing it from the West. But get this, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church preserved it fully as canonical scripture. And its dramatic rediscovery in the 20th century among the Dead Sea Scrolls at Qumran proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that this wasn't some weird fringe manuscript. It was a completely mainstream foundational text for ancient believers. Section 2. Watchers and the Nephilim. Okay, so the first major chunk of this text, the Book of Watchers, builds a completely shocking alternative origin story for human suffering. Think about it. While Genesis attributes the origin of evil to human disobedience in the garden, Enoch claims evil was actually implanted from above. It takes those few really cryptic verses in Genesis about the sons of God and explodes them into a massive cosmic myth where fallen angels actually taught humanity forbidden knowledge. Basically, humans aren't entirely to blame here. They were corrupted by a highly organized angelic rebellion. The text describes the exact moment it all hit the fan. 200 angels, known as Watchers, led by a figure named Semyaza, came down to Mount Hermon. They swore this dark mutual oath, literally binding themselves together to take human wives. And this unnatural union birthed the Nephilim, these hybrid, cannibalistic giants with an enormous appetite who brought absolute havoc to the earth. They consumed everything in their path and eventually started devouring humans themselves. But breeding literal monsters wasn't even their only crime. These fallen angels didn't just bring physical violence, they brought corrupted wisdom. An angel named Azazel and his crew ruined humanity by teaching forbidden cosmic secrets. We're talking teaching men how to forge swords and armor, effectively creating warfare. They taught cosmetics, which the text essentially views as dark deception. They taught magic, root cutting, and astrology. Evil didn't just bubble up from human hearts, it was literally a demonic curriculum. Section 3. Mapping the Cosmic Order. To combat all that chaos brought by the Watchers, Enoch gets taken on an epic heavenly tour. If the fallen angels brought illicit, chaotic knowledge, Enoch's journey was meant to witness the perfect, divine, mathematical order of creation. He discovers that the sun, the moon, and the stars don't just wander around randomly. They aren't autonomous gods doing their own thing. Instead, they follow rigid, exact paths through 12 heavenly gates to maintain absolute cosmic law. It's like a giant, flawless clockwork, where every single storm is measured and every celestial movement is perfectly scheduled. And this precise scheduling leads to a massive ancient controversy. The Jerusalem temple at the time used a lunar calendar, which meant human priests had to constantly adjust it by adding intercalatory months. Enoch, however, comes out swinging for a mathematically perfect 364-day solar calendar that requires zero human intervention. This was a direct theological rebellion. For the communities reading Enoch, the corrupt earthly establishment was literally worshiping God on the wrong days. It was a profound, scathing critique of the religious authorities of their time. Section 4. The Son of Man. Having mapped out the origins of evil and this perfect cosmic calendar, the text pivots hard to introduce a revolutionary figure who will finally execute real justice. To understand why this was so powerful, you've got to understand the genre itself. Apocalyptic literature literally means an unveiling. In an era of violent foreign occupation, where earthly justice seemed completely impossible, this genre provided a vital meta-narrative. It assured oppressed people that their earthly chaos was just a temporary illusion, and behind the scenes, cosmic justice was already completely scheduled. So, who exactly would deliver this justice? Well, the text introduces a pre-existent heavenly judge known as the Son of Man. This figure supposedly existed before the stars were even created, kept completely hidden in God's presence. And when he's finally revealed, he isn't just going to defeat human armies. He's going to shatter the mighty, judge those fallen angels, and execute total cosmic justice. This specific Enochic concept laid the direct groundwork for New Testament theology and ultimate messianic hope. It was an absolute game changer.
Section 5. A Theology of Hope.
Ultimately, the whole Enochic collection isn't just some bizarre ancient fantasy about giants and crystal thrones. It was a profound theology of hope for people experiencing extreme trauma. It basically gave them a 3-step survival guide. First, yes, demonic forces temporarily rule the earth, which completely explains your suffering right now. Second, despite how bad things look, God's cosmic order remains mathematically perfect up in the heavens. And third, final justice and resurrection are absolutely guaranteed. It reassured persecuted communities that the rebellious angels were already bound in the desert, and a final glorious restoration of order was rapidly approaching.
The Book of Enoch really forces us to realize that the history of religious thought is infinitely more complex than just the books that happen to make it into our modern Bibles. Texts that were banned and literally buried in the desert actually formed the foundational worldview of early believers. As we wrap up this explainer, it definitely leaves us with a lingering, provocative mystery. What other forgotten texts are out there, quietly shaping the very beliefs we hold today without us even knowing it? Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next one.